Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Horsepower Obsessed. Today we get to discuss some C8 happenings at the National Corvette Museum. Now, about a week ago, the National Corvette Museum actually posted on Facebook a picture of the camo-wrapped C8 with the date of reveal on the side, and down below stating that they had two new announcements coming at the Michelin National Corvette Museum Bash on the 26th of April, which is today. Just like you guys, I was waiting with bated breath on this. I like to get every tiny piece of information there is to have about this car and share it with you as soon as I can, because I am just as excited as you guys are for a new Corvette. Now, this meeting down at the National Corvette Museum was specifically for C7 info and had very little information for the actual C8. They wanted to discuss the final sale of the C7, talk about the entire production life of the C7, and ultimately when it's going to end. Now, interestingly enough, Taj, right off the bat, he and Harlan and Kirk are all actually dressed in camo shirts. It's kind of funny, a little bit of a poke at the fact that we've seen nothing but a camo-wrapped car so far. But apparently towards the end of the meeting, when they turned around, they all had large C8 logos on the back of that shirt. Pretty cool if you ask me. Now, like I said, there wasn't a huge amount of information about the C8 at this particular event, but they were answering questions. So a couple different people had some questions that they specifically answered the best they could without giving away any information that hasn't been revealed yet. Now, Taj goes on to say that the car we saw in New York City with the little Zora heads all over it was actually his idea, and it was one that wasn't necessarily well received at GM. He wanted to put these little stickers on there as a nod to Zora, obviously, but a lot of GM didn't really care for the idea, didn't really want him to do it. At the very end, right before they walked out the door, he did get quick approval and went through and put some of these stickers on the car that we saw in New York. One of the bigger announcements was that they finally officially revealed the C8 Corvette logo. Now, if you remember, I actually put out a video a couple months ago showing this logo that was leaked, the dashboard startup animation that was leaked. You can actually check that video out by checking right up here at the top right. I'll link it in this video for you so you can check it out for yourself. A lot of the comments in that video didn't believe that that really was the C8 logo, nor was it really the startup animation of the C8 Corvette. Now we're getting more to the point where we find that is the logo, and it's very likely the startup animation, which I always believed it was. It seemed to be way too well done to be anything that was faked. But now we've got the official reveal of the actual Corvette logo, which isn't necessarily huge, but if you guys remember, we got the reveal of the C7 Corvette logo a couple months before the production of that began as well. So this is definitely the same kind of evolution of things, just like it was in the past. There was actually a Corvette Emblem video shared that I got my hands on, and I thought it was fantastic. I'll play that for you guys right here. As you can see, that video actually just shows you the evolution from the original Corvette all the way up to the C8 Corvette. And the way the actual video shows the emblems morphing is actually fantastic. I think that that's great because the actual logo doesn't change that much throughout the years, and it's always easily recognizable as a Corvette logo. Taj specifically says that the reveal for this car is going to be everything that the C7 reveal was and more. He goes on to say that the reveal will be simulcast, basically meaning everywhere you look, you're going to be able to see this reveal. So it's a big deal to GM. Obviously, they want this reveal to go through with flying colors. They want everybody to be interested in the topic. And a lot of the leaks that we've gotten in the past, I have my suspicions that GM specifically leaked them themselves to keep building hype, to keep people interested. So this doesn't surprise me that they want everybody possible watching that, because they want everybody to see the new Corvette. Now, everybody saw the news that happened yesterday. GM has added 400 more employees to the actual Bowling Green, Kentucky plant to start the production of this car. So Even though a lot of people are upset at GM for the fact that they cut some jobs in Detroit and things like that, it looks like they are adding some back. And while I applaud that effort, it's not necessarily the C8 mid-engine Corvette news everybody wants to hear. It's definitely great in my opinion. Obviously, I love the idea of keeping jobs right here in the US and specifically helping out those people that lost some of their jobs earlier in the year when GM closed some plants. Taj actually goes on to say that the adding of the 400 employees to the second shift for the Bowling Green, Kentucky plant is based on his projection of the C8 possible sales, and it is projected to be indefinitely, which means basically that second shift and those 400 employees are going to have a job indefinitely, meaning they think the C8 is going to sell very well. They plan on building a good bit of the cars to keep up with the demand, which again, very good news here. The fact that they have that much faith in the car tells me they know it's going to be a seller. For those of you who are fans of the Ron Fellows driving school, Taj said today that Corvette owner school at Spring Mountain will definitely continue for the C8, which I think is just fantastic. The idea of that Ron Fellows driving school is something that just blows my mind, and I would love to get out there myself just to really know where the limits of my C7 are. Everybody knows that the C8 has been years in the making. Everybody knows Zora wanted this for the Corvette years ago. Taj goes on to say at this National Corvette Museum bash that the C8 has been 66 years in the making. And of course, he's dead on accurate. This is something that should have happened a long time ago, especially if you ask Zora, which of course you can't. But if you could, he would have told you this is something that should have been happening years upon years ago. A lot of people don't agree that the Corvette should go mid-engine, but as I've said 100 times, you have to evolve to stay relevant. And the Corvette is the top dog for GM sports cars. Going mid-engine makes perfect sense for performance, if nothing else. What the Corvette has always been is a supercar at normal car prices. Now, I say normal car prices, but at the end of the day, the Corvette's not exactly a cheap car. With that said, though, it is a lot cheaper than some of the supercars that it compares to or obliterates. Now, with it going mid-engine, it's literally setting its sights on cars like Lamborghinis, Ferraris, etc., because it can directly compare. Ultimately, it boils down to one thing, like I said, you've got to evolve to stay relevant, and that's what GM's doing with the C8. Taj goes on to say a little bit later that they have actually physically built more than 100 C8 Corvettes in one version or another. So when he says one version or another, that tells me they have built a base model, possibly a Z06, and possibly a ZR1 equivalent in this model already to test fully. That's fantastic news because that means we're going to get a car that has been put through its paces and we should not have any day one issues. Fingers crossed. Now, with those cars that they built, a lot of them were built specifically for safety crash tests. So a lot of the cars that you've seen that were crashed for whatever reason, odds are good it was intended to be crashed for test purposes to make sure that the car can handle it. It's interesting to see that they've had that many different Corvettes already built, because every time we get a new leak, someone's seeing them in North Carolina, someone's seeing them in Florida, most recently right down in Bowling Green at a McDonald's. All of these cars have all been different cars. Odds are very good people seeing them in different states. It's never been the same car twice. So with them having this many different cars, like I said, it's a good sign because it tells me they've already started to nail down the building process and they're really working the bugs out of this car. Now, of course, a lot of this information I got from the midenginecorvetteforum.com. I've said it 100 times. It's a wealth of knowledge over there, and I will link the thread that I got this information from in the description down below if you want to check it out. At the midenginecorvetteforum.com, one of the posters actually contributed that for comparison's sake, there was only 86 C7 test vehicles built compared to the over 100 C8 vehicles. Again, this tells me GM is learning from their past mistakes and they want to make sure that this car comes out with zero issues. The C7 Corvette came out, it was pretty good, but it had its own set of initial issues that needed to be ironed out. Most brand new cars, especially something that is as radical of a departure from the previous generation as the C8 is going to be, come out and have a little bit of growing pains. Now, with that said, them putting out over 100 different test vehicles and fully making sure that that car is ready to go is always a good sign, and it is very unlikely we would have any issues right off the bat. Like I said though, fingers crossed. Anyway guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of new Corvette information, but the tiny bits that were shared at the National Corvette Museum, I felt like I should share them with you as well. We are obviously edging closer and closer to the official reveal of this car, and seeing Taj and Harlan and everybody show up down at the National Corvette Museum and talking about it, it just makes it that much more real for me. Let me know what you guys thought about this National Corvette Bash down below. Give me your take on the information we talked about today. Go ahead and give me a big thumbs up if you guys like this video. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And as always, guys, I'll catch you in the next one.